Hey everybody, it's Karacakes. Today we're going to have an interesting video in store for you. We're going to do a calibration video in which I explain all the ways, the methods, the different effects calibration has on your swing tempo, what you can do to improve your swing tempo, what the pros do, and show you a little hidden secret about calibration that people don't really know about in this game. And we are going to start with that secret. If you are new to this game, don't calibrate. Don't calibrate if you're on PlayStation. I believe this also applies to Xbox, maybe on PC, I'm not sure. But no calibration is actually the best in this game. Things get weird after you calibrate. And this video will detail a lot of the things you have to do to combat those weirdness about calibration. But especially if you want to play wireless, I would say do not ever calibrate. And if you do, make a new account. If you aren't already associated with a bunch of societies or TGC Tours or something like that, where you don't really want to change your account. But we will look into the power of the non-calibrated account towards the end of this video. So if you want to see those effects, go on, skip ahead, feel free. But for now, we're going to explain how do the pros calibrate, what seems to be regularly the best calibration. So first off, most of the top players will play wired. Now, if you just plug it into your PlayStation, that doesn't matter. So on PS5, and I believe PS4 as well, this applies. Now, I'm using a DualShock 4 for the purposes of this video. I normally play with a PS5 controller, and I will show you the differences between DS4 and DS5 later in the video. But, for now, we're going to use the DS4 since most people use that. Most people still are on PS4. And many of the tricks and techniques that I'm talking about apply to both. We go to controller settings, however you get there, whether it's system settings or controller settings or whatever. Whatever the controller method is, you're going to use USB cable. Using Bluetooth means even if you're plugged in, it will still use wireless communication. You need to use USB cable. This only applies for version 2 DualShock 4 controllers. For DualShock 4 version 1 controllers, the original PS4 controller, all your controller uses is Bluetooth, even when you're plugged in. So use USB cable, however you get to your controller settings, is how we're going to start. Then, you're going to want to, if you've already calibrated, this is a swing calibration for 10 slows or very slows. All 10 have to be on the slow range. I'm going to use Masters because it has the best illustration for the effects I'm about to show you, and why the pros, the people at the top end, will use 10 slow calibrations. So we're going to try to hit 100s, maybe just barely 101s. Might take me a few tries, but let's go. There's a slow. I'm not used to this controller. I don't like the DS4 feel in my hand, but there you go. Our first perfect. Right on the very edge, as you can see. Right on the very edge of perfect, we get a perfect. And there's the other perfect. Those are the two polling points for 10 very slows with the longest driver. You clip the very, 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 very edge of that, and you get perfect. You have to hit 100 or barely red 101 to get this. As you can see, if you hold down a little too long, it turns slow. On the 288 driver, you have a little more leeway. And on the 285 driver, you have a lot more leeway. But about there is where you can still get perfect. There's the first edge on the edge. And if you hold down too long, like I just did, you get red slow. That is the next pulling point. But if you hold it down long, quick, if you push forward quick enough, you will get a gray slow on that edge. So let's see what we get after a while. Again, held it down too long. It's actually hard for me to hit tempos. Bad tempos. When I actually hit a good timing. There. Again, that turns gray slow if you don't hold it down too long. There it is. Gray fast. Right on the very edge. So your first two pulling points are those very edges of perfect, and the next two pulling points on the PS4 controller, the DS4 V2 wired, are those two gray points. And if you get good enough at doing the swing timing and everything with the DS4, you will get on Masters those gray points. At worst. As you can see, if you go further, it goes further away. But if you're good at your tempo, you're regularly going to round closer to the perfect. And this is what Sean Abbott, he has a YouTube channel, I'll link in the description below, who's talked in detail about these calibration techniques, talks about the rounding. Wired has drastic rounding, especially on the DS4 controller. So as long as you are between the halfway point of this pulling point and perfect, if you're closer to perfect, it will be a perfect. You have a wide berth for perfect. That's slightly larger than Bluetooth, because on Bluetooth there are a lot more pulling points. So this is the way most pros calibrate, is to play wired 10 slows or 5 fast, 5 slows, which has the same, roughly the same. So let's see what happens when we go Bluetooth. What is the difference between Bluetooth, PS4 controller, and wired? One, it becomes a lot more sensitive, I will say that. It's a lot easier to hit perfect, or a lot easier to hit fast for me. But as you can see, now I have more pulling points, and I hit a gray fast. So it gets weird. There are more pulling points, and for me, I find it to be a little more inconsistent. I struggle with the tempo a lot on wireless. So I struggle to find that middle point. You have more leeway. I'm not hitting much faster or slower there. But for those of you who seem to be struggling with tempo and you find it to be very random, I will say calibrating might be something calibrating faster will help you a lot. A lot. Because at least then you are going to miss more often slow than fast, because you start to get good at the tempo. But I just swung around the same as I'd swung the one before, and I got a very fast. Bluetooth is inconsistent sometimes. I never get that on wired. I've never been able to swing that fast. Even trying, I can't swing that fast. So I will say that you get a wider pulling point, but it's way more inconsistent. Again, same thing there. I didn't hit it that slow. It's very awkward on wireless, and it shows why. I had a much narrower band of results on wired, even on a controller I'm not used to. So I suggest playing wired if you have a controller that supports it. Which, if you're using official controllers, you will be able to support it unless you have a really, really old controller somehow. So play wired, and if you can't, play with a faster calibration. Now, 5 fast, 5 slow calibration is very similar. But now I'm going to show you what happens when you do 10 fast calibration. So we will jump ahead to that. Alright, now we have calibrated for 10 fast. Let's see what the results are. There is our closest result to perfect. It's going to be on that line, and it's going to be slow no matter what we do here. As you can see, I am much used to a much slower tempo. But as you can see, that was 101. I'm trying to get 100%, 101%. There we go. I know that's, as you can see, it doesn't change the bar that much. Everything is just on way outside the edge of... There we go. Our first confirmation that that is our real tempo. It's not perfect. You can't get perfect with 10 very fast. But you will get very close. And on other clubs, you will still get perfect. So it's just a matter of, do you want to have a faster tempo? As you can see, I got the edge of that gray slow. That shows that we can get gray slow still. Very edge of gray slow. And we can get the edge of perfect on our smaller clubs. Perfect, perfect. We can even loft it a little bit. And still get a perfect. We probably can't touch spin at all. But can we full spin? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Nope. We can't. So you would have to use a little more forgiving clubs. But I know, for instance, Sloaner has been able to do it on Masters and get perfects on his clubs. So you just need to play more forgiving clubs to do 10 fast, very fast. And hit perfects on your irons. This is a comfort thing. Some people really need to be able to swing fast to get a good swing plane. Or to get a more consistent tempo. So if this is what you need to do, then you do it. And on Pro, it doesn't make too much of a difference. But it does make a small difference. And let me show you why. So we're on Pro difficulty now. And we are still on our 10 very fast calibration. As you can see, oh, now we can hit perfect. Very good. We can hit perfect, so it doesn't matter that much, right? Well, maybe. What do I mean by maybe? So let's see what we got. Perfect. 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 We would still be able to hit perfect even if we fully shaped it. What happens if we fully shape a driver? Can we still hit perfect? Ooh. That's where it starts to get a little finicky. I think you can, though. If you speed up your tempo, speed up your pace a little more, you can still get perfect. So on Pro, it doesn't make too much of a difference. But it does if you use PS5 controller. So for now, whether you use 10 fast or 10 slows or 5 fast, 5 slows, all three of those ranges will get you these edge points on your perfect. That's why calibration kind of matters and why those settings matter. Playing wired is more consistent and you will get way better tempo than playing wireless if you have the controller that supports it. It's very simple. I like 10 slows the best, but some people might have a different mileage. And if you're playing on Matte Legend difficulty, you might have to play wired to get these pulling points. PS5, PS4 wired. PS4 wired, you can't get that very dead center pulling point unless you play wireless. So that is the trade-off you're making, is that you have less perfect pulling points, and so it can be harder to hit tempo. So the choice is yours. Do you want these extreme variations in tempo or what? These extreme shifts from middle to out to the edge, but it's more consistent? Or do you want to play roulette with wireless connections? I find that it is really, really, really unreliable playing Bluetooth, even sitting next to my PlayStation. As you saw earlier, I was hitting very fast and very slows, whereas here, I can't hit anything but gray fast or perfect or gray slow or perfect with the occasional red fast. And even these red fasts are not actually red fast. They would be gray fast if I pushed it forward faster. So like only once every 20, 30 swings am I getting a severe red fast enough to go beyond these points. I have to really try to miss or just be like my hand slip, or I'm just not in the right frame of mind, or something weird happens to get a severe red fast. Generally, it's because I was too slow to push forward. And so I hit the edge of the gray and it turns it to red fast or red slow. Like there. That would be gray's fast. That would be gray fast if I could push forward. There you go. Finally, I pushed forward fast enough to get it. But as you can see, it was kind of hard for me to get it to that point. There. See? I can get gray fast and stuff out there. So that's because of rounding, right? And this is why I'm going to show why PS5 controller actually, I think, is the superior choice. Unless you are the pinnacle of tempo and can very, very, very consistently to the millisecond get similar timings almost within a 3 to 5 millisecond window. If you're not consistently getting it in that small, tiny window, I suggest playing on the PS5 controller. So let's show you why I like the PS5 controller a lot more than the PS4 controller. And it's not just swing playing. Alright, so we've switched successfully over to the PS5 controller and I've switched back to my normal 10 slow calibration. What is different about the PS5 and PS4 controllers? Let's take a look. We're going to be on Masters to illustrate the differences a little more clearer. We're going to start off with a fast because, of course, I'm talking. Very fast. This one is special. And this is the difference between PS5 and PS4 controllers on wired calibration. This is in between the edge of gray fast and the perfect pulling point. You get extra pulling points on the wired PS5 controller. I've heard technically they play similar refresh rates on the controller, so I can't explain why, but something in this controller is slightly more responsive over the wired USB cable than the PS4 controller. So let's see what other polling points we can possibly get. There's the one I want to point out. It's the dead center wired calibration polling point. It's something you can't get on PS4, only exclusive to the PS5 and its controller. Wired using that same communication method I showed at the start of the video. Use USB cable is very strong, and we can get this middle polling point giving us 3 total perfect polling points and 5 on Pro. That's what's so nice about it. So when I miss slow, it isn't a lottery as to whether it's going to be on the edge of gray slow or a perfect. It's going to be more likely in that gray slow vicinity, which gives you slightly worse rounding overall, because now in closer to that middle point is going to be that gray slow instead of being closer to perfect or closer to that edge gray slow. I like that. I personally like that amount of variation because it means my misses aren't so severe. I'm still getting a high amount of perfects. So it benefits me a lot. Similar to the PS5 or to the PS4, 10 fast calibration will be similar to how it is on the PS5 controller as it was on the PS4 controller. But like the PS5 slow calibration, the fast calibration will give you that dead center perfect, so that if you want to play 10 fast, you can still get that middle polling point. And that's kind of nice. And on Pro, if you play in TGC Tours and you don't play with Pro Masters, or if you don't play with Masters or Legend, you just like to play this game and enjoy it on Pro. Maybe you like to play it on Pro-Am, but with the swing timing, this is going to help you a lot. So let's quickly switch the difficulty over to Pro. So for those of you who don't have it, you can't get those polling points, I'm sorry. But what is nice about Pro is extra polling points on Pro matters a lot. Because now I can get those edges. On Pro, I definitely can't. We showed it. But on Pro, we can get that very edge. We can get that edge. We can get that edge. PS5 is fantastic for this. We get extra polling point. So now we're not going into the pretty severe gray fast. We have that very edge. This makes wired calibration on Pro with 10 slows extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. On PS4 controller, you cannot get this polling point. You can't get the one in the middle. So that means you don't get a lot. And if I do a bit of shot shaping, I can't hit that perfect, but it means it'll be a barely gray fast or a barely gray slow. So your shot shaping isn't affected. And on my other clubs, my gold Mizunos, I can full spin and do this much loft and still hit a perfect on the edge. This gives me a lot of shot shaping power. A lot of shot shaping power. So I need to figure it out. Well, I got gray fast because I held it down too long. That's the only problem. And you kind of learn how much you can shot shape. There you go. I can still hit perfect with that amount of shot shaping on Pro. 5 polling points. That could either be a gray fast, pretty severe, as we saw the next polling point, which is the PS4 polling point, is pretty out there in gray. So I can get that perfect polling point, or it would have been a little closer to the center, which doesn't matter in the end. So on Pro, I think the PS5 controller greatly outperforms the PS4 controller on wired. On Masters, not too much a difference. On Pro, huge difference. And on wedges, we can even get the another edge. Let's see if we can get out there fast, like hard, miss a tempo that bad. I've done it in rounds, but there you go. 7 polling points on the forgiving wedges, which means probably if you play with really forgiving, if you play with really forgiving clubs, or if you don't add any shape to these clubs, you can hit a perfect. So in reality, it's like, as long as you're not playing unforgiving clubs, you can hit 7 polling points. On, obviously on Pro, with the PS4 controller, if I can hit that way edge gray, that means on PS4, on the PS4 controller, you can, if you play with these really forgiving clubs, these really like my forgiving wedges, prove that you can hit that edge. So you can, and it doesn't affect your swing or doesn't affect it too much. So you probably can get the very edge on very forgiving clubs and shot shape a lot on the PS4 controller. So it's up to you what you decide to do. But as you can see, I barely miss tempo on Pro. I have to really try to miss tempo. But I am the ranked 14th player in the world. Anyways, I got one more thing to demonstrate. And that's the no calibration. I'll have to switch accounts for that though. So now I'm on the alternate account, as you can tell by my clothes and stuff. This is the alt account. So what's different? So there's no calibration on this account. I have never once touched this dreaded button. Do not touch this button if you don't have a calibrated account at all. A fresh account. This is what it looks like. Wired PS5. And it's really hard for me to miss tempo. I will say that right now. I am hitting basically the same exact points over and over again. It's really hard for me to miss tempo. I know I swung faster there. But I am still getting these 3 in the middle polling points. It is really strong. There we go. We finally missed one. So as you can see, it's like a faster calibration in that I can't hit that very edge. But it is a very strong calibration. These are lazy swings. Very lazy swings, I would even say. And I'm still only barely getting it slow. I think there's a lot more leeway on the default calibration. It feels like a very fast calibration, but with very slow forgiveness on the timing. I struggle to miss tempos. So, I think it is extremely powerful to play with no calibration. But let's look at it wireless. Is there a difference? We saw how wild my tempo was on wireless. Is it any better on a default account? Alright, so I've switched the settings. As you can see, it's wireless. There's no plugged in icon. It's just wireless. What's the difference with wireless? Now, it is a slightly different tempo, so I have to get used to it. but for the most part, my polling points are very tight still. I can get the very edge of perfect on Pro. But we saw how inconsistent my tempo was on wireless on a calibrated account. I am having absolutely no problems getting a very similar tempo no matter what I swing down on. It is actually incredible. I just slipped right there, so I got a slower, and that happens. But there, I swung really quickly, and I still got the very edge. I'm going to try to force some fast. There's, like, that's about as fast as I would reasonably hit. Obviously, adrenaline and stuff, maybe you hit swing a little faster in your rounds. I think wireless tempo is really powerful with no calibration. It lets you do it on Legend and Masters too. So let's switch to Masters real quick and see. Let's see how many perfects I get, or let's just say grays and perfects. Because on Masters, you're still fine with a gray. You're trying to hit perfect, but you're fine with a gray. So let's see how tight our polling points are. Our spread. We still get those. And that might not be direct center. That's like slightly left to center. That's the one thing you won't get. You get slightly different polling points. Like that's slightly right of center. That's very on the edge. That wouldn't be bad in a round. But we saw what I was doing earlier on wireless. How crazy my tempo was getting on wireless. On no calibration, it feels much easier to hit perfects. And much easier to avoid bad shots. That's why I say if you're playing on Bluetooth, do play faster tempo. But no calibration generally is very, very strong. So if you have one of those accounts, don't calibrate. There's our first red. Don't calibrate. But as we can see, we have a lot of polling points. We get a lot of perfects. No calibration, very powerful. Sean is the one who made this account for me and showed me the power of it. I think it's very powerful. I think with no calibration, you can reliably play at a high level on Masters. Well, there you have it. All the different calibrations and what it does to your shots and your tempo, what types of shot shapes you can play on those. And so, in general, wire calibration, more consistent. Fast, 10 fast, not as good as 10 slows. 5 fast, 5 slows is perfectly fine. Wireless can be a bit of a mess unless you're on a no calibrated account. No calibration account in general, very strong. Very, very strong. And it plays like very slow forgiveness with very fast timing. You push down hard, but you have a little more leeway than 10 fast. So there you have it. My rundown on calibration on the PlayStation and what you can do to maximize the calibration. Thank you everybody for watching. This has been Karacakes. Ya girl. You can follow me at twitch.tv/Karacakes. Link in the description below. I stream Monday. Mondays I'm off. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday generally. And sometimes I will do either a Saturday or a Sunday stream and show off the TGC courses for the week. But there you have it, folks. Love you. Mean it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.